إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد, we seek refuge with Allah from all forms of associating partners with Him. Some people claim that it was the way of the Salaf to seek closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by making dua to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam directly or asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the persona of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that is wrong. And we will see here what some of the major scholars such as Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah said. Sheikh Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said in Majmu' al-Fatawa, page 337 to 338 in the first part, asking of Allah by mentioning something other than Allah is either considered swearing an oath thereby or seeking a divine response by virtue of that thing. Such as when the three people were in the cave and they sought a response to their supplication by virtue of their good deeds, or when one seeks a response by asking the prophets and righteous people to offer supplication, dua for one's needs. Now the three people here, we know there were three people that were in a cave, and then somehow the cave which was shut by way of a huge boulder, so they were not able to open it. So each one of them made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through their good deeds. One of them asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that to alleviate their hardship and cause the boulder to be removed from the entrance of the cave through the fact that he was, if you don't cover your head, the angels cannot hear. Cover your head before you enter the place for the salat. By virtue of the fact that he was dutiful to his parents and the fact that he brought milk to his parents to drink first, and his parents had slept, so he waited for them until they woke up, and then he fed them the milk, and while his children were crying for the milk, but he preferred his parents over his children, so he sought to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this good deed. The other person was a person who was able to commit zina, but then out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he stopped from doing that. So he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to alleviate their hardship through that good deed that he did. And the third person, if my memory serves me correctly, was a person that did not betray the trust. In any event, so these people sought for their hardship to be alleviated, for dua to be answered through their good deeds, not through any other person. Now, Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah continues that if it is swearing an oath by something other than Allah in order to urge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to respond, it's not permissible. So for example, we say, "Oh Allah, I ask you by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that you should do this for me." So you don't swear an oath to Allah by someone else, because Allah is high and exalted above all of His creatures. Now, if it is asking Allah to respond by virtue of something that could help to achieve that, what one seeks, such as asking Him by virtue of the righteous deeds, like the examples that we just gave, in which there was obedience to Allah and His Messenger ﷺ, such as by virtue of one's belief in the Messenger and one's love for Him and one's loyalty to Him, and the like, this is permissible. So you can say, "Oh Allah, I ask you by the fact that I love your Messenger that you should do this to me. Oh Allah, I ask you by the fact that I observe supererogatory prayer or fasting that you should answer this dua." This is allowed. But if it is asking by mere virtue of the person of the prophets or the righteous, this is not prescribed. So you don't say, "Oh Allah, I ask you by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, or by Prophet Jesus ﷺ, or by Jilani, Abdul Qadir Jilani, or by this tariqah or that tariqah." No, this is not allowed to ask Allah through the persona of the person, not to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the actual person himself. So you don't ask Allah by Muhammad ﷺ, no, you ask Him by your love for Muhammad, your good deeds. So this is what is prescribed, this is what is allowed. But asking by Muhammad ﷺ or by Isa or by Abdul Qadir Jilani or any one of any one of the people that people may think that they are righteous, then this is not allowed. So this is in contrast to one who asks by means of that which may lead to attaining what he seeks, such as asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by means of the supplication of the righteous. For example, what you're also allowed to do is that if you see a person that you think may be righteous, then you can ask him, make dua for me. So this is allowed because that person is alive. But once that person dies, then you don't go to his grave and ask him, because as Allah says, they don't hear your dua, and even if they heard your dua, they would not be able to answer it. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ لَن يَسْمَعُوا إِن تَدْعُونَ وَلَوْ سَمِعُوا مَا اسْتَجَابُوا لَكُمْ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ عِبَادٌ أَمْثَالُكُمْ فَادْعُوهُمْ فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. So as Allah says, those that you supplicate besides Allah are just creatures and slaves like yourselves. So ask them and see if they answer your supplication, if you are truly saying the truth. Obviously they're not able to help themselves in the grave, let alone help the ones who are alive. أقول ما تسمعون وأسأل الله المغفرة لي ولكم فاستغفروا إنه غفور رحيم. الحمد لله وكفى وصلاة على عباده الذين اصطفى ونصلي ونسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله أجمعين. أما بعد. Now, if we do not seek to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and attain a divine response by means of their supplication or by virtue of our good deeds, rather we seek to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by virtue of that person himself, the physical person, then this is not a means that will cause our supplication to be responded to. Thus, we would be seeking a divine response through something that is not a means. So you are trying to attain and reach a goal, but you are not undertaking the correct steps. So the correct step, as we say, is to ask Allah through His names. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. To Allah belongs the good names. So ask Him through these names. Or you can make dua directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or you can ask someone who you think is righteous to make dua for you. Now, this does not mean, however, that we do not give a high status to the Prophet ﷺ as some grave worshippers claim. Some grave worshippers claim that the people that follow the pious predecessors, they don't respect Muhammad ﷺ and they don't give him a high status. This is an utter lie, because Muhammad ﷺ has high status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he is the occupant of the station of praise and glory, al-maqam al-mahmud, and he sallallahu has the most sublime status among all of mankind and the leader of all the prophets. Peace and blessing be upon him and all the prophets. But his noble status before Allah does not mean that we should ask Allah or seek divine response to our supplication by means of his high status. Shaykh al-Islam, may Allah have mercy on him, said, what Allah and His Messenger ﷺ have explained is that there are some people who possess virtue and are of high status before Allah. And this is sound and true. However, the matter should be discussed as follows. If this high status, by virtue of which a person may ask of Allah, is indeed the means of supplication being answered, then it is good to ask by virtue thereof. But if the worshipper says, by virtue of the high status from such and such person, then these righteous people, if they are really regarded as people of high status and virtue before Allah, which means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not punish them, and Allah will honor them with reward and raise them in status, as He has promised them, and as He has made it incumbent upon Himself to do, then there is nothing in the fact that they deserve honor from Allah to constitute a means to help this worshipper attain what he is seeking. Because that righteous person deserves what he deserves of honor because of what he attained of faith and obedience by the help of Allah. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, or these pious predecessors, or these pious people, they attain that high status by the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if someone says the means is the supplication of that righteous man, this is correct because this person is alive. But if the person is already dead, then this is not the correct means to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in many places that the people of Nuh, who were the first ones to worship statues, they were the first ones to worship Allah before statues. They had 5 statues. They were called Wud, Suwa', Yaghuth, Ya'uq, Nasr. These are names of pious people. These were pious people at the time of these people before Nuh alayhi salam. And people used to go to them for advice, for supplication. After these 5 people died, the people felt sad for their death. So Shaitan came to that generation and told them, put stones in the places where these people were used to worship Allah, so that you may remember them after that. That generation was gone, a new generation came. Shaitan came to them and told them, you better make statues out of these rocks in the form of these pious people that died, so that you don't forget how they look. That second generation was gone, a third generation came by. Shaitan came to that generation and told them, your forefathers used to worship these statues, so worship them. So people started worshiping statues, and this was the first time where polytheism was committed on this earth. And it was committed, the end result is polytheism that leads to eternity in hellfire. The intention obviously in the beginning was good. But if the intention is good, then it is not enough to save one from hellfire if he does not undertake also the necessary good steps. So you should not do any form of worship except that which was legislated by Muhammad ﷺ. And without going into details about what this scholar said or what that scholar said, because we do not worship the scholars, but we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that sent us Muhammad ﷺ. Let's just see, did Muhammad ﷺ tell someone, ask Allah to answer your dua through me? No, the only hadith that some of these grave worshippers take is the hadith of a blind person who came to Muhammad ﷺ, said, "Oh Muhammad ﷺ, I am a blind person, make dua to Allah so that I can start seeing again." The Prophet ﷺ said, if you have patience and remain blind, it's better for you. But the blind person says, no, I'd rather become a person that sees. So, oh Muhammad, make dua for me, for Allah to cure me. So Muhammad ﷺ told this blind person, make wudu, pray 2 rak'ah, and make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and ask Allah to allow me to make intercession for you, shafa'ah for you. So this blind person made wudu, prayed and says, oh Allah, I ask you by Muhammad ﷺ that you make Muhammad ﷺ be able to intercede for me. So here, these grave worshippers, they said that this person said, I ask you Allah by Muhammad. No, Muhammad ﷺ told this person, pray and make dua so that Allah can accept my dua to intercede for you. Because if supplicating Allah through the persona of Muhammad ﷺ was enough, then the Prophet ﷺ would not need to he himself make dua for this person so that Muhammad ﷺ can intercede for this person. Otherwise he would have told him, okay, go home and then make this dua and then you will start seeing. No, he told him, make dua, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all sincerity to allow me to intercede for you. And then the Prophet ﷺ did make dua, and this person was able to see again. Now, Umar radiallahu anhu, after the Prophet ﷺ died, and there was a state of drought, and he asked Allah, he said, oh Allah, when Muhammad ﷺ was alive, we used to ask our Prophet ﷺ to ask you to make rain come down. Now that Muhammad ﷺ has died, then we ask you through his uncle Al-Abbas, oh Abbas, get up and make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it to rain. So Umar radiallahu anhu did not say, oh Allah, I ask you by Al-Abbas. He says, no, oh Allah, I ask you that you accept the supplication of Abbas. Oh Abbas, get up and make dua. So this is Allah to tell someone to make dua. But this does not mean that Umar radiallahu anhu supplicated Allah through Abbas. Otherwise, why would he tell him, get up, ya Abbas, and make dua? He would have said, oh Allah, we ask you through Abbas for it to rain, and that's it. No, he said, oh Allah, we ask you through Abbas, oh Abbas, go, get up and make dua. In other words, oh Allah, accept the dua of Abbas radiallahu anhu. Also, if supplicating through a dead person were allowed, why would Umar radiallahu anhu would not say, oh Allah, we ask you through Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? He never said that. So it was not allowed. The Salaf never said this. So no one can say that there's difference of opinion. There's only difference of opinion among the latter generations of so-called scholars who go to these universities and study religion according to the Western mandated and allowed styles of religion. Because this was a Western goal. After 9/11, it was stated correctly that we shall teach the Muslims their true religion, the new religion. And this is the religion that is being taught today in the Muslim land. So if you see a so-called scholar coming up and say, I have such and such doctorate degree in university, and I say such and such, tell him that doctorate degree, go hang it somewhere and fool someone other than me. This religion was brought to us by Muhammad ﷺ more than 1400 years ago, and that is the only true religion. Any other path is a path of misguidance. Go please your lords from the disbelievers and the hypocrites. For us, we shall not be misguided. It is not allowed to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the persona of Muhammad ﷺ. Otherwise, there is no difference. There's going to be no more difference between Muslims and Christians and the Jews. Because the the Christians ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Isa alayhi salam. So if that is allowed, then that means that they are on the truth. Then we no longer have the true religion and false religion. So these people who are calling to worshiping the graves and worshiping the dead people are misguided. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring them back to the straight path if there is any goodness of them. I say what you hear today, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept all of our good deeds and get up for your salat.